Second. Okay, good. Good afternoon. I am calling this Transit Commission meeting to order. It's July 12th at 5:30 with a quorum present in chambers. The first item is approval of the minutes. It's from May 18th, 2023. They're in your packet. Is there any questions, concerns? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to accept. Okay, motion by Turner, second by Lukens. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Discussion and possible action on awarding contract to purchase a 7-passenger van.
Okay, so unfortunately, we did not receive any responses for a 7-passenger van. We are more concerned about the snowplow, which is the next item, because that piece of equipment is no longer really drivable. It's not safe. The van we have still has a little bit of life left in it. It's a 2003 Dodge Grand Caravan, which is certainly beyond useful life, but is still running. I think this third time we go to bid for it, we will get responses because what I do is I contact a lot of the dealerships for the snowplow. We reached out to about 30. We got 2 responses, which I'll talk about later. But when I was doing the debriefs with some of the dealerships, they mentioned that some of them are now seeing some progress on the van side. So we were certainly more concerned about the snowplow.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to just hold this until we get bids. Number 4 is discussion of possible action on awarding contract to purchase a heavy-duty service truck equipped with snowplow and salter.
Okay, so this went through Board of Public Works, Finance Committee, and then City Council all yesterday. It ran the gauntlet, so this is the final step, and we're just approaching the Transit Commission to award the purchase of this. We received 2 bids. Only one bid was considered responsive because one of the bids did not have a chassis included, was just for the dump and the plow. So the bid we got was from Kunis Country Ford, which is in Antioch, Illinois, and it is for a heavy-duty snow plow, and the bid is $150,000, $32.26. It does meet the specifications. Now, 100,000 of this, well, 80,000 will be funded with 5307 operating funding through the federal government with a $20,000 local match. So there was essentially with the local match and the $50,000 over budget, it came out to $70,000, $32.26 that was allocated from the transit reserves to pay for this. So it's just going through the commission to get kind of the final approval and enter into a contract with Kunis Country Ford of Antioch to purchase the vehicle. It is currently on an assembly line, and they believe it'll be done, early fall of 2023, September. They'll outfit it all with the plow, the salter, the spreader, the bumper, everything in the specs will be outfitted, and it's a Ford F550 chassis. It's replacing a 1997 Ford F450 that has a broken frame and no brakes.
Okay. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to accept. Motion by Turner, second by Lukens. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Discussion and possible action on acceptance of fleet transfer of 3 40-foot buses from the Duluth Transit Authority.
So this was actually resolved last night by council. We suspended the rules, meaning it did not have to originate from the Transit Commission. The reason we did that is just because of the time-sensitive nature of it, is we want to get the buses down here during the summer so that we'll have them all ready for the school year. But this was passed through council last night, so it'll just be information only, correct?
Right.
So essentially what this will allow us to do is accept 3 40-foot buses from Duluth as a donation. The fleet is currently down by 5 buses. We lost bus 905 in an accident with a tractor trailer in August of 2022, was damaged beyond repair. And 4 buses, which we bought used from Kenosha in 2021, I believe, which are 29-footer buses. Those ones are reaching the point where they're almost 20 years old, not in very good shape, and not really viable to repair. So we are in the process of disposing of those 4 buses. So those 4 buses with the totaled bus, that would be 5 buses we're down. So these 3 will be a fleet transfer, and we've already executed a fleet transfer with Waukesha, where we've got 2 35-foot buses. These buses are, model year 2008s and 2009s, replacing buses that are model year 2004s. So they're significantly newer. The total bus was a 2009 model year, actually, but the 4 Kenosha buses were 2004s. And they're in much better condition. We sent a mechanic down to inspect them. They're really in remarkable shape. And they'll be used for our school tripper service. The Duluth buses are 40-foot, which is going to be the biggest bus that we operate. We've operated 40-foot buses in the past, but there will be more space for the students, and those buses can get fairly crowded. The Waukesha's are already here. We're in the process of getting them in serviced, and the Duluth buses will be here in a few weeks. So this essentially was all taken care of by council, so it's really information only, but these are low mileage, seasonal work assignments, being school trippers, so you don't necessarily need the newest vehicle to use on these runs. So these are really just perfect for what we need them for.
And I just want to add, the reason that it's on this agenda as this is that we've been kind of squirreling around, and then we found out last minute that they needed a resolution, not just, and we can't do resolutions in Transit Commission, so it was already on this agenda, and then that's why we threw it on the council agenda to get it done ASAP. So just to give you some idea of why the machinations that we've been doing.
And one thing I forgot to mention is all of the costs associated with the fleet transfer. For Waukesha, they did charge us a small amount for the buses, but the cost of staff time to bring them down and new tires and all that stuff we're going to use, it's going to be funded out of the insurance recovery from bus 905, which was the totaled bus. So we reached a settlement with our insurance carrier. We're just going to apply that money to fixing these used buses up.
Okay. Thank you. So we will go on to the Transit Director's report, if you want to just run through that.
Sure. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about is our buses and facilities grant. The buses and facilities grant is a grant through the Federal Transit Administration that has been allocated as a funding source to modernize our fleet in the next 2-3 CIP years, I believe. And unfortunately, we were not successful in getting funding this year. And the reason why is we were requesting to replace a conventional diesel bus with a conventional diesel bus. Out of 1,300 buses that the federal government gave funding for, only 2 were conventional diesel to conventional diesel replacement. The federal government at this point is saying if you would like to use federal funding to replace a bus, you have to be replacing a diesel with a hybrid or a battery electric bus. So it was a little bit of a surprise to me, but as I called around and talked to some of the other properties, they said they knew it was coming. But essentially the program, there's $1.2 billion in funding, and electric and hybrids get first priority at it, and they cost much more than a diesel bus. So the leftover money funds the diesel buses. So essentially the feds are buying less buses with the same amount of money because the prices are going up. So it makes it more competitive, and then if you rank low because you are looking for conventional diesel, it makes it hard to compete in this grant. So we need to start moving in the direction of electric and hybrid buses, and the biggest obstacle to that right now is our facility. It was built in 1979. It's in a flood zone. The electrical grid in the neighborhood might not be supportive of the kind of power draw that you need for charging. There are no platforms or catwalks that you would use for replacing batteries on the roof of a bus, or natural gas tanks which are on the roof of a bus, hydrogen buses have infrastructure on the roof. So the facility is built essentially just for diesel and gasoline vehicles, and we need to look at modernizing it. So last night we got a local match, commitment for local match for the 5304 statewide transit planning grant program. And what it would allow us to do is spend up to $100,000 to do a feasibility study that would determine on whether or not we can overhaul our facility or whether or not we need to essentially look for a new site. Or if it would be something like, raising the building and rebuilding on the site. There's a lot of factors that I'm not really an expert in, like floodplains and electrical grids and things like that. So we think it's best to bring in some outside engineering expertise to help us with that. And this afternoon, I was fortunate enough to have a call with WisDOT, who is going to be they're running the grant, and some of the representatives from our MPO here in Wausau, and WisDOT said that we have a very likely shot at getting the money for that study. So that was some very encouraging news. They were very supportive, and the MPO is going to do whatever they can do to support the grant as well. So that will help address the future capital funding issue. I think what we're trying to avoid is getting into a situation where all we have are diesel buses that are getting older and older, more expensive to maintain, and we can't get federal funding to replace them with something new, and we're stuck with a facility. So I think it's really important now to try to get the ball rolling and try to get this process moving to look at, kind of transitioning our fleet away from diesel fuel. So that is it for the facilities grant and capital funding. I'd like to, at this point, do some introductions. Over to our left, we have Yvonne Scheffler, who is our new administrative specialist. She is replacing Julie, who I'm sure you all knew well. Yvonne, we're extremely excited to have her. She comes with a lot of very relevant experience from the Postal Service and UPS, and the job has a lot of moving parts to it. It's an extremely complicated job that has a lot of variety to it. So she's really dived right in and picked up a lot of those things. So I just want to introduce her. And I don't know if you have anything you'd like to say, Yvonne, but we're very happy to have you here.
Maybe just so everyone knows, like a little bit of background.
Sure.
So you alluded to the Postal Service. So that's where I went straight out of high school. So I had close to 25 years there, both as a rural carrier out on the street. So I can empathize with bus drivers out in the weather, constant. I ended there supervisory in Stevens Point. So I spent time, in that capacity with doing some of the same things that are very similar to what I do in the administrative position here. Ended there, from that supervisor and, acting postmaster on weekends. So I had those roles. And then that was in the Fox Valley. We did move here 4 years ago. My husband is from the area. I was not. However, in working with UPS, I got to know the area quite well. So roads, maps, those things I was telling Kyle are kind of they're my wheelhouse. And I think Matthew had said that part of the reason that they chose me is because I know you guys have bids out there now for the CAD and that program, and I have a lot of background in being the person to watch that progress through the Postal Service and then use those and kind of utilize those type of things to see logistically where people are on maps and use those programs and work with those software engineers to, sit and see where things are and ping them and, have that ability. So hopefully that'll be helpful in the future also when we go through that process and if and when we get there, have that, so.
Sure. And thank you,
Yep.
Yvonne. So I'm sure you'll all be seeing her a lot at both the commission meetings, and if you ever come down to our garage to buy tokens or passes, you'll meet Yvonne. So we're really excited to have her on board. And another great staffing announcement is Megan Newman has been reclassified to be the Deputy Director of Transit. And we are extremely excited about that role. Megan has really stepped up with, the absence when there was no director as the interim director, as well as just stepping up to help us get through all of our day-to-day craziness with Julie leaving and a lot of other things. And I'm really excited to kind of develop the role of deputy director. There's a lot of work in transit that needs to be done. And I think the idea that kind of it all rested on sort of the director's shoulders was not necessarily realistic, especially as a lot of these federal programs are becoming more and more demanding, and there are more and more unfunded federal mandates and things like that. So it's going to help to have someone tackle a lot of the operational issues. I know Megan has a huge amount of ideas for all sorts of positive things she wants to implement at Metro Ride, so we are extremely excited about that as well. And staffing updates. Staffing, we are in good shape with full-time bus operators, fully staffed. Part-time, we're doing a recruitment. It's moving forward. It's slow, but we are making some progress. We have a part-time operator starting Monday. So I believe Monday. So we are making progress in that direction. Shop staffing is a problem, especially for mechanics. We have had a mechanic position open, I believe, going back since 2022. We've reclassed it. Still are not getting a lot of responses. It's a very competitive market for mechanics. We are just struggling with 2 mechanics. We really need that 3rd mechanic to be fully staffed, especially with our fleet getting older. It's a challenge. So we are kind of struggling in that area, as well as the utility worker position. That position's now open again. So we're having open recruitment for that as well. So staffing on that, the shop side has been a bit of a challenge. The fleet update, I did talk about this quite a bit already, but just to clarify, we have sort of those 5 buses that are no longer usable. 4 of them are being disposed of right now, and 1 of them we'll keep on the property. We'll pull it for parts. We'll take everything of value off of it. Then we'll send it to a scrapper. And we have 2 used buses on the property already, and we'll be receiving 3 more throughout the summer. And I'm really encouraging staff, the mechanics, to really invest in the vehicles we have rather than sort of patch and pray type repairs, doing more substantial fixes like engine swaps and transmission rebuilds. It's a challenge with only 2 mechanics because it's like their staff time is spent dealing with a lot of road calls and pressing issues that need to be addressed at that moment. So it's hard to set aside 15 work hours to do a big job like an engine swap, but we're trying to make that work and trying to invest in our equipment to try to get the most amount of life out of it. And then just a couple other updates that have happened kind of between the time that this agenda's gone out and today is the shelters. They've gone in. The physical structures are in the ground. They went much faster than we were anticipating. We were anticipating a few weeks to get them all on the ground. Our mechanics and a few of our drivers who are out in summer work, they got it done in about 3 days. They really hustled. So right now we're in the final touches of putting in the benches, the solar lights, some signage, just kind of doing the final touches. And like Commissioner Zorn said, we will have a dedication. So we'll work out the details for that soon. And then we have received 4 responses from qualified firms for our CAD-AVL consultant RFP. We got a very good response back. I was really impressed with that. So tomorrow we will unseal them and begin the process of selecting a consultant who's going to help guide us through that technology project for the next 2 years. So things are exciting in transit despite all of the kind of day-to-day challenges and operations. So that is all I have.
Any questions? None? Okay, well, thank you. I think we all have good updates, and so I'll take a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Kathy. Motion by Zorn, second by Turner. We are adjourned. Thank you. Bye-bye.